Welcome to the newest episode of Beatin' and Bangin'. I'm your host, Kyle Dalton. Today's video is a recap of the race weekend in Kansas, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Wow. I have a breakdown of the race and that final lap, including the emotional radio conversations of both Kyle Larson and Chris Buescher right after both cars took the checkered flag for the closest finish in Cup Series history. However, there was a lot that happened before the race, which was rain delayed by a few hours. Let's first go back to Saturday and practice and qualifying. I know I'm critical of Fox and their coverage, and I have a few things to talk about in that department. But I also want to give credit where credit's due. If you were watching on Saturday, you saw Fox showed the SMT data of Denny Hamlin and William Byron. Kevin Harvick described what was being shown and talked through the comparisons of both drivers. It was really interesting to see how the drivers approached the track similarly and differently. Even better, Fox showed the SMT data live while Tyler Reddick was making his practice lap. It was cool to see what was happening on the track line up with what was happening in the software. I don't know how Fox can implement this more in the future, but I hope they find a way somehow because it does add some context to what is happening on the track. Now on to the Fox F-ups. There were plenty, but there were two that stuck out to me. The first happened after the ARCA race during a post-race interview with Mario Andretti. Yes, that's right, at least according to Fox, the 84-year-old came out of retirement and decided to race in Kansas with ARCA Series. Okay, you see the graphic. It was his grandson, Mario. But it was, once again, one of those moments where I can only think an intern is in charge of creating the on-screen graphics and there's no one proofing their work. That same intern must have been on the job on Sunday with this graphic of Tyler Reddick. 6 career wins and 6 career top 5s. You look at that graphic and immediately go, WTF, or what the Fox? Moving on from the frustrations of fans watching Fox to the frustrations of Ryan Preece at Stewart-Haas Racing. If you'll recall, last week at Dover, the 33-year-old was understandably unhappy after his cockpit filled with smoke in the first stage and he was the first one to exit the race. He told reporters afterward that it was unnecessary and it could have been prevented. Late Saturday afternoon, journalist Toby Christie posted on X about how the SHR drivers who had been working together in a study group all had solid qualifying efforts with the exception of the number 41 car, and Christie noted how Preece had not been in those meetings. To which the driver responded, study group that I wasn't aware of. Ouch. This latest situation with SHR unsurprisingly has fans talking. Some are suggesting that the organization will be selling off one or more of its charters at the end of 2024. And based on the latest happenings, it looks like Preece will be the odd man out. I don't know about any of that. It's just all speculation at this point. But there's no doubt about it that it's a bad look that one of the drivers is being excluded from a team activity. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on this in the coming months because things could get really interesting. I want to just briefly touch on the Truck Series race and specifically the pit road incident with Lawless Alan. I spoke with Chris Hall, the director of Legacy Motor Club pit crew operations, last week. He's the latest person from pit road that I've had on the channel. As I've said before, this is a team sport and the pit crews are critical to any team success. And just like the drivers, these guys put their bodies at risk in each race. That was shown on Saturday night when Lawless Alan overshot his box and hit his tire changer, Brandon Henry. It was a scary scene. Henry was taken to the infield care center to get checked. I spoke to someone aware of Henry's status this morning, and he's a little banged up and sore, but nothing, thankfully, was broken. Moving on to Sunday, and not necessarily the race, but the rain delay. There were several entertaining moments during the Fox pre-race broadcast, including Denny Hamlin calling his shot, with a little encouragement from Clint Bowyer.
Had to go out and win this race in Dover. You literally called your shot. Would you tell people it's finally this year is the year you're going to win the championship? Just call it.
All right, this is it. This is the year.
Right.
This is the year
There
it's
you
going to
go.
happen.
Championship
You can
year.
thank me later.
All right. All right, thanks.
Or blame him.
Or
later.
blame, yeah.
While Fox was rounding up drivers to talk with on the air, there were others just hanging out in their haulers. The RFK Racing X account was lively and included a friendly match of rock, paper, scissors between Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski. But the best part of Keselowski's pre-race routine was the comment he had to say about Kyle Busch. Take a listen.
I can't debate you on that one. Peanut butter is better. I was just telling these guys I can eat these now since they stopped sponsoring Kyle Busch.
Funny, but also a reminder that Busch and Keselowski still have some animus toward each other. It's hard to believe that it was 14 years ago that this happened.
Oh, y'all are so loving. Kyle Busch, driver of the number 18 Double Mint Camry, ready to win it again. Brad Keselowski, driver of the Penske Racing Dodge. Kyle Busch is an ass.
Back to the present day, and I have to mention the F1 race in Miami. I've made no bones about how while I respect Formula One, the competition aspect is boring compared to NASCAR because we always know who's going to win. Not on Sunday. So I want to give kudos because of what transpired in Florida with Lando Norris, earning his first career victory. I thought it was like the motorsports gods wanted it all to work out. The NASCAR rain delay, allowing everyone to watch that race, which turned out to be entertaining, and then after it was over, flipping back over and watching the Cup race. A good day for motorsports fans all around. And our last item before the race comes from rookie Carson Hocevar. I'm sure you saw this past week how the Spire Motorsports driver tricked Austin Dillon, Anthony Alfredo, and Kaz Grala into filming cameo videos calling on fans to vote Hocevar into the All-Star voting. During Sunday's pre-race show, the youngster was out soliciting votes once again, in yet another surreptitious way. This time, it was photobombing Bubba Wallace during his interview. You can see Hocevar in the background mouthing, "Vote for me." Through the first 12 races, Hocevar has been impressive. He's definitely the top candidate right now to receive Rookie of the Year honors. But outside of his driving, I love the kid's personality. We hear all the time how the sport needs more stars and too many of the drivers lack personality and are boring. Hocevar is anything but that, and quite frankly, it's refreshing. Give me more of that. All right, now let's talk about that race. I'll just come right out of the gates and say from the drop of the green flag to the wild, history-making photo finish, this was undoubtedly the best race in 2024. And it wasn't even close. The inability to pass has been a hot topic all year. Not at Kansas. 20 laps in and there was a lot of movement with William Byron, who started in the rear and he had moved up 17 spots. John Hunter Nemechek had moved up 14, followed by Brad Keselowski and Ryan Blaney, who both improved their positions by 9 spots. While there was plenty of passing in that opening stage, Kyle Busch wasn't happy with his passing, and in particular, his inability to get around Noah Gragson on lap 30. Listen to this.
It's got to go. Man, just stay calm. We're only 30 laps in. You'll get him. Just bide your time here.
That first stage had all kinds of quality racing, including Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain battling for the lead, with the Joe Gibbs Racing driver holding off the Trackhouse driver for the stage win. Stage 2 was much of the same. I think the highlight of that stage came early on, when Chris Buescher showed just what kind of driver he is and the cojones he has when he threaded the needle between Ross Chastain and Christopher Bell. I was watching the in-car camera of Ty Gibbs. This is what it looked like from his perspective. Impressive stuff. Speaking of Gibbs, after last week's outburst directed at Bubba Wallace, I was listening in on the number 54 team radio in that second stage, and the 21-year-old caught me by surprise when talking about trying to pass Riley Herbst. Take a listen.
Goodness freaking gracious. Get him out of the way. Good God.
Goodness freaking gracious? I've never heard that 3-word combination before. A kinder, gentler Ty Gibbs, maybe? Buescher won that second stage, his first stage win of 2024, and served notice that the number 17 car had come to play. Unfortunately, the excitement of running up front was short-lived, as the pit crew had a member over the wall too soon during the pit stop at the stage break, and Buescher dropped to the back. I know I haven't mentioned it yet, but those first 2 stages went caution-free. That meant Stage 3 was going to get more than its share, and it did. The first caution for cause came out when Jimmy Johnson checked up because he saw smoke ahead and Corey LaJoie ran into the rear of the number 84 car. The 7-time champion let LaJoie know how he felt about it, staring him down when the number 7 car drove by the next time around. As Mike Joy reminded us, cautions breed cautions, and they did. There were 4 cautions in 22 laps. Then, everyone settled in for what appeared to be a long green flag run to the checkered. In those waning laps, it looked like it was going to be a battle between leader Denny Hamlin and his JGR teammate Martin Truex Jr., who had passed Kyle Larson and Chris Buescher to move into the number 2 position and was reeling in the number 11, reducing his lead to less than a second with 7 laps to go. Then, the 2 drivers' former JGR teammate, Kyle Busch, had a say in the matter when he spun and brought out the final caution of the day. During that pit cycle, Truex was the only one in the front to take 4, everyone else with 2 on that final stop. As you've all seen by now, on that final trip around the mile-and-a-half circuit, Buescher appeared poised to finally snap Ford's winless streak in 2024. Kyle Larson had other ideas, including some beating and banging coming out of the final turn, which did just enough to slow down the number 17's momentum for the HMS car to edge ahead of him for the win. Here's the radio confusion in both cars moments after taking the checker flag. First up is the heartbreak of the number 17 car.
Coming to checkers. Dig to the stripe. Checkered.
Yes! Oh, yeah! Good work! Heck yeah, guys, that is awesome! Good work, girl. I know I missed that one. Whew!
Run out or say it 5.
There's no way. Talk to me.
Still saying a 5.
I don't get it. Minus timing and scoring have us first. I don't know how they explain this one. Dang it. Good job, Bill. We won! We fucking won! We won! We won! They just said the 5 was the 1! Fucking go!
That was awesome. My timing and scoring shows 0.000. Seriously, 0.0000. They just said it was a 5 per the camera. Hell of a job, Larson.
You really have to feel for Buescher thinking he had won and then learning he had lost by that much. Speaking of that much, as you may know, because I've talked about it on X and YouTube, I've been doing a fun little project this year, keeping track of the margin of victory for the Cup Series races. Adding our history-making margin of victory from Sunday's race in America's Heartland, and we are now at a combined 9.532 seconds in 12 races, or an average of just over 3/4 of a second per race. And of course, keeping with what I've shown in the past, I have to include F1's margin of victory through 6 races. It sits at a shade over a minute and 12 seconds. Speaking of trends, I'm excited to show for the first time, courtesy of my buddy Joel Steuben at Stube.com, some team tracker trends throughout the Kansas race. Let's start out first with the race-winning team of Kyle Larson and Hendrick Motorsports. What can you say about Larson's numbers other than they are pleasing to a numerologist and show the best kind of progression through an entire race? William Byron, on the other hand, is ready to move on to Darlington. Taking a look at the runner-up finisher Buescher and his teammate, co-owner Brad Keselowski, and you're looking at a team that knows how to tune on a car and make adjustments throughout a race. Great run for the RFK boys. JGR had a good day for the organization, finishing 4th, 5th, and 6th. But you see, Ty Gibbs ended the day on a sour note, finishing 32nd. I wasn't listening to the number 54 radio, but I'm curious if it was another goodness freaking gracious kind of moment. Sticking with the Toyotas, it was no question a downer of a day for 2311 Racing, which came in with high expectations, having won 3 out of the last 4 races at Kansas. Both cars struggled, and that's reflected in the graph. Ross Chastain had a solid day early, earning stage points in the first 2 stages, but fell back late and finished 19th, but still finished 8 spots ahead of his teammate Daniel Suarez, who languished in the mid-20s all day. And our final team tracker we're going to take a look at is one of the most interesting graphs of the day, and that belongs to Stewart Haas Racing. Noah Gragson, who started third, continued to be the feel-good story for the four-car organization with his third consecutive top 10 and fifth in the first 12 races, finishing ninth. It'll be interesting to see where he falls in our last 5 races analysis coming out on Wednesday. As for the rest of SHR, Josh Berry had a solid showing, while the numbers 14 and 41 had forgettable runs. And the last order of business for this episode is I want to announce the winner of the Kyle Larson autograph card, which I'm giving away following a little contest I had in yesterday's video celebrating the first birthday of the channel. And the winner is Xman5056. He commented on the video and was selected through a random number generator. I'll be reaching out to Xman soon. All right, guys, that's a wrap on this episode. We covered a ton. I want to get your thoughts on all of it. What did you think about the Ryan Preece tweet and what's going on at SHR? What did you think about Denny calling his shot for winning the title? And what are your thoughts on Brad Keselowski's pre-race comments on Kyle Busch? Do you want that rivalry revived like I do? And I'm pretty sure I know what you thought about the race, but what did you think about the confusion in the end and the radio communications from both cars? Pretty intense stuff. And finally, what do you think about our team trackers for the race? Were there any surprises in there? Remember, if you want to read my written work, go check it out at heavy.com and beatingandbanging.com, where you can also sign up for my weekly newsletter and you'll receive an email each Friday recapping the top stories from the week, including reviews of the various NASCAR-related podcasts. Also, make sure to check out my Beating and Banging podcast on the Blue Wire Network. Thanks again, guys, for supporting the channel, and have a great rest of your day.